Sweden used to be one of the most welcoming countries on the planet. Open borders, generous asylum policies, one of the highest standards of living in the world, and a reputation for tolerance that made it a dream destination for millions of people seeking a better life. But something changed. Gang violence exploded in cities that were once peaceful. Bombings and shootings became regular headlines. Integration failed on a massive scale. And now Sweden has done something that is shocking people across Europe and around the world. It is actively making it harder to become a citizen, deporting teenagers who have lived there for over a decade, speak perfect Swedish, have jobs, have families, have built their entire lives in the country. And the politicians sitting in a room at Swedish radio in Stockholm cannot even agree on whether this is the right thing to do. Today we are going inside that debate, hearing from the people who are making these decisions and asking the question that millions of immigrants around the world need to hear answered. Why is Sweden slamming the door shut? And what does it mean for anyone trying to build a future in a new country? Welcome to Canada Pathway Immigration. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, because this channel breaks down the immigration stories, policies, and decisions that directly affect your future. In 2015 and 2016, Sweden took in over 163,000 asylum seekers in a single year, one of the highest per capita numbers in the entire world at that time. The idea was rooted in a genuine belief that Sweden had both the capacity and the moral responsibility to help people fleeing war and persecution. But what followed that wave of arrivals was a failure that Swedish politicians across every party now openly acknowledge: the failure of integration. People came, but the systems to absorb them, educate them, employ them, and connect them to Swedish society were simply not ready. Asylum numbers have fallen from 30% of all arrivals in 2018 down to just 6% today. And just days before this debate was recorded, Sweden passed a new citizenship law that extends the waiting period to become a citizen, introduces a language and culture test, tightens other requirements, and crucially, applied these new rules immediately to people whose applications were already in progress. People who had been waiting under one set of rules suddenly found the rules changed beneath their feet. Her position is that Sweden must raise the bar for citizenship because fraud exists in the system, security threats exist among applicants, and the country has a responsibility to the people already living there. The governing coalition's view is clear. Sweden had too much immigration, integrated too few people successfully, and must now prioritize control and responsibility over openness. Morgan Johansson from the opposition Social Democratic Party presents a more complicated picture. He was a minister during the years of high immigration and now acknowledges that mistakes were made. It is something else entirely. He also argued strongly that the new citizenship rules should have included transitional protections for people already in the application process, and that changing the rules midstream without any grace period is fundamentally unfair. Mattias Karlsson of the Sweden Democrats, the party that has risen to astonishing electoral numbers and whose core identity is built around skepticism of high immigration levels, made the argument that this policy shift is simply the responsible thing to do. He argued that returning to more open immigration policies would be genuinely dangerous for Sweden's future, and that 90,000 arrivals per year is still too high a number. His broader point is that migration policy must serve Sweden first, a position that was once considered extreme in Swedish politics but now commands majority support in parliament. Håkan Svenneling of the Left Party stood alone on the panel in opposing the current direction entirely. His argument is that immigration has made Sweden stronger, not weaker, and that the data on crime and integration is being weaponized for political purposes. He also challenged the complexity of the citizenship process for people who fall in love with Swedish citizens, arguing that the waiting period is unnecessarily long and punishing for people who are genuinely committed to building a life in Sweden. The audience members at Swedish radio added voices that brought the human reality of this debate to life in a way that political arguments alone cannot. One master's student who came to Sweden as a refugee challenged the panel directly, pointing out that he had done everything right, learned the language, studied, worked, and still faced an uncertain future under the new rules. Another audience member, a woman named Beatrice who learned Swedish, works in Sweden, pays taxes, and has integrated fully into Swedish culture, described the experience of having the rules changed on her mid-process as having the rug pulled out from underneath her, and questioned whether this attitude was even consistent with Swedish values. The debate about Sweden's schools added another layer to this picture. Sweden introduced a market-driven school system with private for-profit schools operating alongside public schools, and the results have been deeply troubling. Sweden is also sharply increasing its defense spending and has reintroduced military conscription for both men and women in response to the growing threat from Russia, with GPS jamming and spoofing already occurring in the Baltic Sea region. This is a country that, as the program opening noted, no longer takes the good life for granted. What does all of this mean for you as someone thinking about immigration, citizenship, and building a future in another country? It means that the rules can change. It means that the political winds can shift, and it means that the decisions you make today must account for the possibility that the country you are moving to may look very different in 5 or 10 years. The question of how many people a country can absorb, how fast integration can realistically happen, and what obligations a country has to people already in the process. These are questions without easy answers, and the people sitting in that room in Stockholm prove that even experienced politicians cannot agree on where the lines should be drawn. This is Canada Pathway Immigration, and our commitment is to keep you ahead of the changes that matter for your future. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand what is happening in Europe right now. Stay informed, stay prepared,